Welcome to Idle Red Hands Weekly. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Chris, the other Chris. Not the usual Chris.
And what is Idle Red Hands Weekly? It is a yearly gaming convention that brings together tabletop gamers from all over the globe. In 2019, nearly 70,000 people attended, making it one of the largest tabletop and hobby gaming conventions in the world. For 4 days in August, we take over the Indiana Convention Center, the entire field of the Lucas Oil Stadium, home of the Colts, and several downtown hotels to spend with our favorite people and play games. With over 20,000 events, running 24 hours a day, you can play old favorites and discover your new go-to for game night.
Wow, I had no idea we were so popular.
Well, actually, that's GenCon.
Oh! What a surprise.
The reason I bring that up is because I don't know. So I have a badge. I have a 4-day badge for GenCon this year. I was all fired up at the beginning of the year. This is the year. I'm going to GenCon.
Wow.
And yeah, I don't know. We're not quite sure what the fate of it is. And I think I have until June for a refund, so we'll see about that.
Yeah, the hopes are there, but I'm thinking probably not, eh?
Right. Let's see. The date is July 30th to August 2nd.
Mm-hmm.
And they've already canceled San Diego Comic-Con, which is July 23rd to July 26th this year.
Mm-hmm.
So Comic-Con International canceled both WonderCon, which is in April and in Anaheim, and then the San Diego show. And the San Diego show is like heavily propped up by Hollywood, so that might have a lot to do with it too, because if Hollywood doesn't have anything to announce because everything's being released late.
Yeah, we've been talking about E3 and how that's not happening as well at work. So, yeah, same deal.
Oh, right. Yeah, so I wonder what kind of effect that's going to have. I think especially the San Diego Comic-Con is going to be hard on comic artists and professionals that, do a lot of commissions and get a lot of work done, kind of in networking and everything during that time. So that's going to be weird. And so I wonder, what effect that's going to have on GenCon, because, sometimes they have Kickstarter pickups, or there'll be things that certain companies will do that you can only do at GenCon.
Right.
And if that gets canceled, then there's just a big hole.
I'm not an artist myself, but out of curiosity, like what kind of percent of a yearly volume would that make up for someone?
Well, for indie press guys or people that have that just get a table, like that are in Artist Alley. Mm-hmm. I've heard artists that make 10, 20 grand over a 5-day show.
Wow.
For doing original art and stuff. Yeah, they were selling their books, signing their books, and then doing commissions. So I know some artists that, that's a big chunk for 5 days of work. It's an amazing amount of money.
That's incredible. Yeah, that's a year's salary there.
Right. And it helps because it's where you get new work too. It's, you're able to network if you're only working with one company, and it gives you exposure. And it worked well. It worked really well for me because I just did tables in small press area, and I'm surprised at the amount of people that you came into contact with. Big publishers like Barnes & Noble walks around, and a lot of the publishers are looking for projects. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so we'll see. So I was really excited. I thought this is going to be the year, and of course, this is not going to be the year. GenCon, I hadn't ever been before, and I thought this was the year. We'll push the podcast, and we'll really go all out, and meet some people that I've only had email contact with, and that's not going to happen. I think I'm really doubtful.
Yeah.
And I would be surprised, even if they do hold the event, I wouldn't be surprised there'd be a lot of cancellation.
Yeah, I imagine there wouldn't be that many people there, even if it did happen.
Right. And a lot of big companies pulling out, especially if they have to travel internationally.
Right. Oh, there's always next year.
Yes, there's always a next year. I was saying that for quite a few years until this year.
Well, yeah, I'm killing myself for it because I grew up in northern Illinois, so only a half hour away from Lake Geneva, but I never went my whole life. But
right. I'm not sure when they moved it to Indianapolis at some point. I think when it became monstrous, it started doing Indianapolis. But yeah, that's true. And that was the same thing. As soon as I moved to California, to Los Angeles, I was like, I have to go to San Diego Comic-Con because I've heard about it my whole life. And yeah, that was pretty wonderful to have it that close, have that big event. And then it stopped becoming a comic book convention. It just became a summer movie trailer show. Yeah.
Hey, it still seems like a lot of fun. I've never been, I think of all the traits that define me, like I am a gamer more than anything else, but I've only ever been to an anime convention. I've never actually been to a game convention before.
Right. So we will see. Yeah, so that's all part of the effect of our recent health crisis that we're dealing with, which we can't mention. I've especially noticed on YouTube, you have to check a box that you're not going to make any references to the current state of affairs if you're going to post a YouTube video.
Really? Huh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it's not like it's a big deal or anything. I mean, come on, why would people talk about that?
Yeah, they're being real strict about it, and I guess just because they don't want to be the platform that promotes a lot of idle nonsense and conspiracy theories and things. So.
Oh yeah, that would be horrible for that to happen to YouTube,
right? Because up until now they've been completely. So, Chris, this is your first time on The Weekly.
Finally!
and as we tried to be as confusing as possible, you are the original Chris.
Yes. Also occasionally known as the handsome Chris or Kobe Chris.
Nice. So the Chris you've heard more often on The Weekly went as Wayne on the original podcast. So when you guys were originally recording. Mm-hmm. Chris was Wayne, and you, Chris, were Chris.
Correct. Yes. Middle names and all that stuff, and yeah.
All right. So, for anybody that's kind of new to the podcast or hasn't listened to anything in the back catalog, what is your experience with role playing? Like, how'd you get into role playing, and what did you play early on?
Well, as with pretty much the standard, I started with D&D, the red box, way back when I think I was 12 or 13 or something like that. I got it off a kid at high school who I'm pretty sure stole it from somebody else, knowing his personality, sold it to me for like $10. And then, actually, I started out playing with my best friend at the time, a Boy Scout, and we kind of just played a couple adventures on various camping trips in the tent. So it was like me jamming and then him doing a solo, like a duo campaign. Mm-hmm. Like that. And then, it's D&D for the vast majority of time until I got to university and then started playing other games with friends, Rifts and Cyberpunk and all those great games that were around in the 90s. And then I guess finally came on to Japan and met you guys. And it's been wonderful ever since.
Nice. Yeah, I was thinking about, because this is the 50th episode. So we've got 2 more until we've been doing this for a year, since Weekly has been going for a year. And so I thought, if I can manage it, I'd like to get everybody together, and the 52nd episode can just be kind of a discussion of the origin of Idle Red Hands. I think that would be
awesome.
I think that'd be really fun, and talk about, kind of where things came from and how you guys met and how things started. That would be fun, because I don't think it hasn't come up. We're mostly complaining about indie games and Twitter drama and Kickstarter on The Weekly.
Yeah, that'd be fantastic. I'd love that. Geez, I suppose it's been how long? We started when I was back in my old apartment, so probably going on almost a decade now of Idle Red Hands. Mm-hmm. On and off, I suppose. But
So what have you been up to during these past few weeks?
Not much, really. I've been taking it easy a lot, mostly working from home. My company provided me with a horrible little laptop to try and do complicated design work on, so that's great. Just had a big game release in March, sorry. So the workload has been really light, so that's been thankfully forgiving. So I've actually just been kind of doing the home thing, hanging with family. That's about it.
Nice. And how about as far as gaming? Have you maintained any online?
Sure, I've mentioned it at some point previously on the cast, but I play a weekly game with some friends back in Chicago, and we play an Apocalypse World version of a Star Wars game. And I don't know if it actually has a title. The PDF is called Omega Edition, but I think that's just because it's the last or latest edition of the game.
Oh, nice.
I found it on a quick download on Story Games, that forum site, and it's absolutely fantastic. If you're a Star Wars fan and a fan of Apocalypse World, I highly recommend this game. It's really well put together.
Nice. Yeah. How long has that been running? How long have you guys played?
A long time. We're in season 3 now. I think we've been probably going at it for 2 years, maybe even more. Weekly sessions.
Excellent. Yeah. Oh, that's really good.
Yeah, it's one of those things where we started out with a bunch of just joke characters. The one character is a ex-stormtrooper named Raph Stabulon, and his droid companion named IH8U. So, but it's one of those things where it started out as a joke, but by the end, it's super emotional. We're all crying at the table, like, "No, Raph, I'll never forget you." The best kind of games.
Right. Oh, that's excellent. What platform or how do you guys play online? Do you use a virtual tabletop or just Skype? Or
originally we played with Skype and then Roll20 on it, but because it's a Powered by the Apocalypse game, it doesn't really need anything. It just needs a couple of D6 and you're all good. So it kind of devolved to the point we were using pictures thrown up. The Roll20, but now we just use it on Discord with a bot that rolls dice for you. That's all we really need. Yeah.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah, I've heard a lot of Discord gaming. So, and that's something we talked about in a previous episode. We kind of went through the most popular virtual tabletops, but it does seem that people, just because you can't rely on everybody's connection and people don't, necessarily have a green screen or a background ready for their Zoom session. So,
right.
So Discord seems to be the the easiest way to get online with the least amount of fuss. That's
It
great.
seems to work out pretty well. How about yourself? What have you been doing for gaming?
Well, with this time off and this kind of time isolating, I've been looking into solo gaming.
Oh,
And the one thing that I really wanted to try and even try a live stream of was Tunnels and Trolls.
oh, cool.
Yeah, so I purchased a couple of the old PDFs as well as the old solo adventures, and I played through a few of them and realized maybe as a live stream, unless you had a real full chat that was kind of helping you make decisions, it would just be me reading a choose your own adventure book. So, I mean, there'd be some fun in it, and there'd be some roles and, maybe a little drama, but a lot of reading. Like there'd be maybe a little too much text for people to really enjoy it as a live stream. But I've played through quite a few. So the original adventure that they included, even in the free RPG day version of Tunnels and Trolls, the rule set is Goblin Lake. And that's a real fun setup where you play a goblin instead of a rolled character. And then Castle Buffalo, Naked Doom, and Death Trap Equalizer. I've all had a few.
Those are fantastic titles.
Yeah, they're really great, and they've got great cover art and everything. But I really enjoy that system, and I love the history of Tunnels and Trolls. The way that Ken St. Andre was just looking at Dungeons and Dragons and saying, "I don't quite get this, but I want to play this, so I'm going to make my own version of this that I understand." And it's got a lot of charm and a lot of appeal. And the very interesting thing about Tunnels and Trolls in general is it's never gone out of print, and the original creator is still alive, and they've made every version of the rules kind of backwards compatible. So everything is compatible. There hasn't been a huge evolution where they've changed things so much that you can't use old modules or old adventures.
Wow.
So it's really, really fun. And it's very old school, and it has a sense of humor. And I like that about it because that's something I think Dungeons and Dragons has lost. I mean, people bring that to the table, but as far as the materials, Dungeons and Dragons takes itself pretty seriously now, and it doesn't have any sort of self-awareness as much as it used to, at least.
Right. It's actually interesting you mentioned that. When podcasts first became a thing, when the iPod first came out, I was looking around for them, and one of the first things I downloaded was actually somebody who was doing what you just mentioned. They were reading their own Tunnels and Trolls game just online and putting it out as a podcast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it was like 15 years ago. I have no recollection of what the name of it was, but I enjoyed it for a few episodes.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, a few people have, I think if you do sound effects and things, like if you record your session and then kind of embellish it a little bit or kind of make it a little more entertaining, it might be fun, especially if you can get a dramatic reading, because they're very entertainingly written, and some of the ends some of the ways that you die, the ways you end up is really great.
Yeah.
So it's entertaining in that. I think it would be for a busy live stream, maybe it would be a good time because you can kind of have a consensus in chat about what to do.
Right. Well, if you ever want to do it, Lyle and I, we can be your peanut gallery and egg you on.
Oh, good. Yeah, that would actually be fun. Yeah, to just as a group, just kind of go through. We could group solo.
Awesome.
And another game that I looked at, I downloaded the PDF, but I haven't played yet, is called Artefact.
Never heard of that.
And this was a Kickstarter. I think it was last year the Kickstarter was held. It's by Jack Harrison at Mousehole Press. It's just a zine size RPG, so 32 pages.
Okay.
But the concept is really nice, and it was originally written for a legacy jam. So the tabletop RPG like jam that was just exploring the idea of succession or consequence and time. So that happened, the Kickstarter was probably the beginning of this year. The interesting thing about the game itself is basically what you roll up is an artifact, like a weapon or a magic tome or a shield or a piece of armor or something. And then what you do is create keepers that carry this object with them, and you have to answer questions. So you choose from kind of a list of archetypes or types of people that would have taken this artifact with them and what they did with it, what effect that it had. So the character you play is kind of an enchanted item, and you just go through kind of a legacy of what happened in the history of that item and what effects it had in the world.
Oh, how cool is that?
Yeah, that's really interesting. So I'm really looking forward to trying that. And that might be a more interesting thing to live stream, because you're not reading so many blocks of text. You're kind of just answering questions. And it's more one of those kind of journal writing games. So you're basically writing a story. Like the game is a mechanism to write a story of your adventure.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a game that I've been looking at. I've mentioned it before, just kind of in our private messaging, but that I really want to run with you guys. And that's, you ever heard of Microscope before?
No.
It's not necessarily a game so much as a world building game. So what you do is you set out the beginning and the end of a universe, and you kind of just go through and dictate what happens within this universe. And it's called Microscope because it zooms into certain points within it, like moments of very dramatic change within whatever the world is happening. And you can role play through these events and stuff. And you basically build out a timeline and a story for this entire game world from beginning to end. And it is fantastic, especially with booze and pretzels.
Nice. Oh, that sounds fun. Yeah, very cool. Yeah, we'll definitely have to give that a shot.
Excellent.
So what kind of system, what do you, are you rolling dice, or what are you doing?
It's a diceless system. What you do is,
cool.
freeform imagination to it, and you just kind of put in what events are happening to it, and you pass around I forget the term for it, but like basically who's doing the game master, and they're allowed to take slight control of the story, but it also requires consensus and then role play input from the other players as well.
Ah, I see. Well, wow, looking forward to that. That sounds fun.
Can't wait.
Well, amidst the current fun we've been having, some people are calling it bad weather. Some people are just using all kinds of euphemisms to refer to our current situation. But there was an announcement, and we've brought up, this kind of comes up every few weeks, and that's the subject of Kickstarter and the effect that it's had on the hobby, and also kind of the negative things that have come out of it. But Kickstarter itself just announced that they're going to be laying off employees.
I saw that, yeah.
They said since the beginning of this year, they've had a significant drop in projects listed, and they get a percentage of everything. Mm-hmm. So fewer projects means less income for them. And they said projects were down about 35% so far this year, with no clear sign of rebound. That's going to mean some strange things, especially with the comic book industry not doing so well. I think a lot of those creators, those writers and artists would be looking for a crowdfunding platform like Kickstarter to kind of continue their careers and just go directly to the fans.
Right.
And if Kickstarter doesn't exist, or it exists in a different version that is not as profitable or doesn't have, the same reach and ability that it had before, we'll see what happens. The surprising thing about that is this suspiciously, I don't know if it's suspicious or not, but it suspiciously follows the announcement of the employees unionizing, which was something we mentioned earlier.
Yes.
I think at the end of last year. So they're going to be layoffs just as these rascals in this digital industry decide that they're going to unionize. So who knows?
Deliciously conspiratorial. I love it.
Yeah. So I don't know if there's any connection with them willing to, being so willing to lay off people. And I don't know if, they haven't organized to the extent yet where they have protection and negotiation yet. So yeah, we'll see.
I wonder where they're based, if it's a right to work state or
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, that would be a good question, and we'll see what happens. But with Kickstarter talking about their financial woes, we're having two really big Kickstarters that have launched, and they're almost concluded. So we're in the last few days of both of them. And one is our favorite, Come is doing their third version of the kind of faction combat game. So they're doing Ankh, Gods of Egypt. That's a huge follow-up to Blood Rage and Rising Sun, the Viking theme and then the Japanese themed games. And so that's Eric M. Lang doing that. So that's a huge one that went online. And then the probably biggest board game that they're ever going to have online is the sequel to Gloomhaven.
Oh.
So Frosthaven. Frosthaven is in its last few days platform, and it's approaching $9 million.
Yeah, both of those have easily cleared their goals, though, right? They're both going out regardless.
Oh, yeah. They definitely are. But it's funny that Kickstarter is saying, oh, woe is us. And they have an $8 million, $9 million board game on there, on the platform. Yeah, and so the history of Gloomhaven on Kickstarter is very interesting, because the first printing of Gloomhaven on Kickstarter only raised $380,000. The second printing was $4 million, a $4 million campaign. And now the sequel is going to be a $9 million campaign, if it hasn't gone beyond that yet, because there was kind of a big rush at the end, people that are waiting to see.
It's absolutely incredible.
This creator, this game designer, Isaac Childress, is very deserving of this, because it's a great game. He runs great campaigns, really honest, straightforward support, tells you what's going on, gives you a lot of really intimate updates about how production is going, how design is going, because we got to see, basically how every little card and everything was going to be put in the box as it progressed, as they were kind of prototyping boxes and things.
Yeah, that's fantastic.
And it's a monster of a game too. So I think maybe half of that 9 million is going to just be in postage because it's a very big game. Yeah, looking forward to it. So it's a similar system, and just the change of setting and characters, and of course monsters and adventures. And also this is coming I'm not sure if the original version had this already, but it's including solo rules already. So out of the box, yeah, you can try it out just for yourself.
It's nice how many games there are really pumping up those solo rules. It's something that was just completely unheard of not more than a few years ago, but
No, that's true. And it's funny because it's never been more easy, especially online, to get together with people and at least play by voice.
Oh, yeah, good point.
A tabletop game. And something we talked about before with the Call of Cthulhu box set, the kind of the introductory starter set they made, is it includes a solo adventure. And I think that's really good for teaching the game master how a session is going to be.
Yes, absolutely.
Instead of just those little summaries of, Bob rolls a 24 and like, what does that mean? They have those little examples of how the rules will work, but you doing it yourself and going through an adventure and seeing how all those mechanics, when they would come up and how they affect gameplay, I think is very useful, because you basically, as the GM, if it's a new system, have to teach the players. So
Right.
I think that's a good thing to start including. And then it gives you the ability to not have friends. So where can people find you?
Here. Yeah, I pretty much only occasionally show up for the Idle Red Hands podcast. Is to my constant chagrin. I want to be on more, but work and family and things like that. Watch more Idle Red Hands, so you can find more of me.
All right, so that would be idleredhands.com for the website, and on Twitter at idleredhands. And if you'd like to support the podcast, see more things happening, and I think there will very soon be a special level of patron on the Idle Red Hands Patreon to support the Mutant Chronicles lore series. So if you're a Mutant Chronicles fan and you would like to support that, take a look at patreon.com/idleredhands and get involved with what we're doing.
It's not my voice doing it, but I can promise you that it's worth it.
Nice. I do a weekly live stream of my single panel gag cartoon. That's abusecartoons.com. And you can find that both on Twitch and YouTube at Abuse Cartoons, and also on Twitter at Abuse Cartoons. The archive of the cartoon itself is gocomics.com/domestic abuse. So that's it for this week. I want to thank Chris very much for joining me.
And thank you for getting me on. I've been trying to get on for ages, so I'm so happy right now.
Yes. Excellent. We will continue our weekly schedule, so you can subscribe to this podcast on the website, and this will also be a video on YouTube. So we will be back next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
On some Sunday